Amy Rowbottom is the founder of Crooked Face Creamery. As mentioned by Amber, Amy is part of the effort to renovate part of downtown Skowhegan. She's actually inside and located in the building that Maine Grains Incorporated has redeveloped. Amy Rowbottom is the cheesemaker as well as the CEO and founder. She makes artisan and handcrafted cheese, some of the best actually in the state. Smoked versions are her claim to fame, with smoked Gouda and smoked actually ricotta cheeses. They're fantastic. I was able to find them a few years ago when I had met up with Amy. Another company that does an exceedingly good job of branding and positioning. And so what we're going to do is go to that interview right now. I'm really excited to be able to introduce our next presenter, Amy Rowbottom. Amy, amongst other things, is the founder and head cheesemaker at Crooked Face Creamery, which she'd opened over 11 years ago, and known for their incredible handcrafted artisan cheeses, first class in marketing. Crooked Face Creamery is on the leading edge of Maine sustainable food resurgence, and part of that effort to reestablish the agricultural sector. As I mentioned, amongst other things too, Amy is also a graduate of Wheaton College. Amy, we're really delighted to have you here with Converge and Create. I found you in several different ways, but that first class in marketing is something that just really overtook me. And I think that's kind of when I first reached out to you and just knew that you were doing some spectacular things. What we'd like to do is just ask you several questions and just really work with the audience on some insight that you've had as an entrepreneur. First, if you could briefly describe Crooked Face Creamery, what type of business is it, your product line, etc.
Sure. So, as you said, I founded Crooked Face Creamery about 11 years ago. Small batch artisan cheese company. So far, it's just been myself. So it's something that's grown over the years. I started out nights and weekends, and then it went to part-time, and then I'd say about 4 or 5 years ago, it became a full-time venture for me. I've specialized in just a few cheeses. It's interesting. Back when I started this, I knew I wanted to just hone in on a few cheeses and make them really well and market them as far as I could, versus trying to make a million different styles and trying to keep up with all of that. So I focused on a whole milk ricotta and an aged Gouda style cheese. And so I've branched off here and there. It's always fun to get creative and try new things. And lately, with the opening of my retail shop, it's fun because then I can do some product development and testing. So I am branching off a little bit, but those have been my core products, and I sell them retail and wholesale. And so if the one that's most kind of I'm known for is the applewood smoked ricotta, and we just got into Whole Foods, and that's building a bigger market base. So that's taken a lot of my time and energy these days.
Would you say that obviously you do have a retail location? We're going to talk about that towards the end to let people know where you're located and how to reach you. But are you primarily a wholesale company and or retail, or is it 50-50, or what would you say?
Yeah, so I started out just farmers markets, so just direct sales, and then over the years I built up a wholesale, quite a big. My market for wholesale is pretty much, I would say it was about 80%. But then in the last year, with the opening of the retail space, it's dropped down to say probably 40%. And now I'm doing a lot more direct sales again. So it's shifted over time. I started working with Native Maine, and that group, that was the beginning of growing more of a wholesale market, because there's only so many hours in the day and ways to get your product out there. So once I established a connection with them, I was like, wow, this makes my life a whole lot easier. I can put all this cheese on a truck and it takes it all to all the places. And so that was really exciting. It was allowed me to scale up my batches and make bigger batches. But I also really value the one-on-one with customers. So in the middle of all that, I was like, okay, like this is great. This helps support my business, and the larger batches I can make, the more I can be flexible with my unit costs, which can, get me into some new markets or work further away from Maine. And because with that supply chain, it adds up everybody that's handling your product, and you want to be, price competitive on the other end. So it's been important for me to scale up my batches. So wholesale's really key in that. But then I also really want to maintain that one-on-one with a customer. That's what I enjoy the most, is seeing people eat my cheese and enjoy it. And pre-COVID times when you could actually sample your product in front of people. But I just love the farmers market atmosphere. I love the shop atmosphere. And so I'm balancing both right now.
I've had several of your products as well as my friends, and I think I've started them on eating.
I appreciate that.
It's absolutely fantastic. I mean, the quality is just unbelievable. It's interesting though too that the types of cheeses that you've chosen to go into are not necessarily perhaps the ones that most people have had in the past, as it were, right? So you talked about like smoked Gouda and ricotta. Can you talk about how you actually got the idea for those types of specialties and/or niches, or how did that originate?
So I started back when I first started making cheese. I was working for a company called Maine Heat full time, and they make these beautiful wood-fired ovens and masonry heaters, and so I was starting to make cheese, and I wanted to smoke cheese, and we're like, well, maybe we could try smoking it in the wood-fired oven, and I was like, so after work one day, I stacked the cheeses in there and I smoked them, and it was amazing. There was a lot of problems where every time you open the door, all the smoke would come out in my face, or the fire would start up again. And so I was like, okay, well, this is fun and different, but let's try to figure out a better way to do this. And so, gosh, years down the line, I had them build me a custom smoker, which was really fun to work with them on that. But so I just noticed at farmers market, I mean, it's all like, it's just, I was out in front of people and I could see what they gravitated towards. And the smoked Gouda was definitely like, it's just always sold out. I never could keep enough in stock. And so when I went and invested in the commercial smoker, it was a tough time for me financially. I was kind of restarting things. I had to take a year or two off due to personal reasons. And I was like, I really want to make some smoked aged cheese, but the cash flow is really tight. So what could I make in the smoker that is fresh, that could be sold the next day, that's interesting and different? And that's where the smoked ricotta idea came out, because I was already making ricotta. I knew I didn't have to invest in more equipment. And I just thought it sounded amazing. And so I started to do some testing, and I went to stores and restaurants. I had chefs taste it right in front of me. And they were like, wow, this is incredibly different and kind of a good niche, because there wasn't anything else out there that was like it. And my ricotta is very different. I use whole milk. Usually ricotta is made from whey left over from making other cheeses. So it's really rich and creamy. And when people try it, they're like, is this ricotta? This is actually ricotta? And I was like, well, it's my own variation of it. And anyway, so that's kind of how it all started.
Do you have your own livestock? It's funny because we can see the logo in the back, and you'll have to tell the quick story of how you came up with the name. But do you in fact use your own livestock, or do you source that locally around the area? Or?
I used to. My ex-husband and I ran our own dairy farm for about 5 or 6 years, so I used all our milk from my own cows, and that's really where I got my start. I would just nights and weekends, like I said, part-time on farmers markets on the weekends. I would just like do just getting my product out there and getting people to test it. But when we separated, I knew I couldn't make cheese and milk cows too. I couldn't do both as doing it on my own. So I ended up then buying milk in from Springdale Farm, who they're close friends of mine. They have a wonderful creamery as well. The farm has been in their family for over 100 years. And so they come once a week with a big tank load of milk. And I feel very connected to their farm. We actually bought our first herd of cows from them. And so they just do an amazing job. And it was hard to not do, I missed that side of it, taking care of the cows and having them part of it. But it was the only way for me to continue on doing what I love to do. So.
And one of them had a smile on their face. Is that kind of how you got to
Crooked Face? Yeah. So our first herd of cows, you know, we didn't notice it right away, but she kind of had this like twist, tilt, like her nose is a little crooked. It's called a rye face. Apparently, it's kind of common in Jerseys, and we called her Crooked Face. And she was just one of the hardest working cows, like no nonsense, and just quite the character. And so when I started making cheese, and we're like, what should we name it? And I was doodling the cow face, and then Crooked Face Creamery just kind of had a nice ring to it, and so that's kind of how that began.
Yeah, I mean, it's a very recognized brand. And as I mentioned to you, and I'm just exceedingly impressed of the level of marketing detail that you take in your company. And for those people, we'll give them the website in a bit, but to go there, you can tell everything is intentional and purposeful of elevating the brand and the consistency and such. It's interesting because you mentioned a fair amount when I chat with you about experimenting and testing. And I really think you embody that quick, iterative learning loop of getting in front of a customer and seeing what works and what doesn't. Would you say that that's been kind of a principle of your success, of getting quickly to the market and really judging well what people want?
Yeah, I think it's been this slow growth, or the years of hauling all my stuff to farmers market and standing there for hours and talking to people, and getting my product right out and seeing people's reaction. That was a great way to grow and gain some recognition and kind of figure out the marketing piece and who I was. I think a lot of that is just being creative and letting yourself come through. And I enjoy the cheese making just as much as I enjoy the imagery and the colors and all that as well. It's all so very important to me and personal, really personal, that I have a hand in everything. So that was the strength, is just having all that time, going out on the road and one-on-one with customers and going to shops and sitting there with a chef and have them try it right in front of me. And that's what built my confidence to keep reinvesting in this.
And I think that's a really important element for entrepreneurs who are watching this, because I think too many of them get really stubborn in the fact of what they believe the market wants versus what the market actually does want. And that's what I've always been impressed to hear you when you talk about that, just your ability to be agile and really nimble and really understand that market. And that's why I really believe you just know your customer exceedingly well. You're really engaged with them. And that's a message that we want to send to other entrepreneurs, that look, what you may start out thinking in your own mind may not exactly be what it ends up to be, but being able to pivot and move with that's exceedingly important. What would you say the toughest part about starting your company has been?
Well, definitely finance, like coming up with the financing. I mean, when I started the creamery back up, I had no money in the bank, really. I had no equity. I needed bigger equipment, I had to scale up my equipment, but I also needed a larger facility. So it's like, how do you get through those barriers? And I think I ended up finally getting a loan through the Dairy Improvement Fund, which is through FAME, but it was all started at the Department of Ag, and it took 2 years, and I had to have a really solid plan. I had to go through all that work of building a really solid business plan and the 5-year projections. And I took a class through Maine Farmland Trust called, and it was with Jed Beach from FarmSmart, and working really closely with him on building that solid plan, so that gave the financing institution confidence to work with me. But that was really the hardest part, to move to this next level, was getting financing when I didn't have a whole lot behind me to back me up. So that was tough. But it's just all about being persistent and believing in what you can do. So
Now, the level that you're at right now, I mean, obviously you're in your own factory and maker space. And why don't you tell us a little bit about that and where you're actually physically located so that people can find you and such?
Yeah, so I'm downtown. I'm in the Maine Grains facility in downtown Skowhegan. It's the old Somerset County Jail, actually. When I was in this dilemma of like, I just got this equipment loan, now where do I go? And Amber Lampke, who owns Maine Grains and started this all in downtown Skowhegan. I went to meet with her. She's been a business advisor and a friend for all these years, and she brought me next door, and she said, well, I have this space that, we're kind of re-envisioning, and what do you think? And I looked at the floor, there were floor drains, and I'm like, now I'm in the downtown space, the farmer's market right outside. I was like, this feels like the perfect fit. And so, that's where I am now. We renovated the space. So I've got the creamery, I've got milk room, creamery, smoking and packaging room. I've got the office and then the retail. So everything's right here downtown.
So people can effectively just drive in and go to the retail counter that you have there and purchase as well, right?
Yeah.
But you're also located in other, as you mentioned, you're located with wholesale partners in and around the state as well. So people can find your product in other locations.
Yeah, I work with, like I said, I work with Native Maine. I work with the Milk Mavens, which are a bunch of ladies from the Maine Cheese Guild that are kind of started up their own little cheese distribution company. And I do ship as well. And we do deliveries as well with our longstanding customers. And we are in the Portland Whole Foods and specialty shops kind of throughout the state. So we do a lot out of the storefront, and I'm trying to, I was coming up, it took a while to just feel out when people are coming through, because I don't want to just stand at the retail space. One of the nice things about this is I can work, and if someone comes in, I can help them out. And that's a huge benefit of having my workspace connected to the retail space. But just kind of feeling out when traffic's coming through and when set hours make sense. So I'm open Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. Thursday and Friday, 10 to 2, and we might be extending those hours over the holidays. And then Saturdays, I'm open from 9 to 1. So those are our set 4 hours, but like I said, over different times of the year, we kind of extend those out. And I basically am here all the time. So if you're driving through, stop by, because even if it says closed cheese making in process, I am still sitting at my desk. I'm working. I'm here all the time. So.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Entrepreneurship is difficult. It's definitely a different path. And when we talk with people who are thinking about entrepreneurship, we're quick to tell them that it's a life commitment. You have to sort of figure out how you can balance your other aspects of your life. But it's also something, to me, exceedingly rewarding. And I think it plays to a lot of things that people, like. And I would have to believe that you're somewhat competitive and you kind of want to see your idea win in the marketplace. And I think that's really part of what gets people going. What would that be for you? What's the element that really keeps you coming back every day? Because it isn't easy, and so what do you think is the most fulfilling or appealing about entrepreneurship?
I mean, the biggest part of it for me is having something of my own that I've built. It makes me feel good to do something I love every day. I love making cheese for people. I love seeing people happy, and that's the greatest reward. I work all week and it's a grind, but then on Thursday, Friday, Saturday, people are coming in and they're happy. They're happy to see cheese. and that fills me with joy. I feed off of that, that positive energy. And it's, it's a way for me to kind of design my own life, even though there are many work hours. My daughter's here. She can be involved in it. I feel like it's a way also where I grew up in a dairy farming family. So it feels really good to stay connected to that way of life in some way. I can't imagine myself doing anything else, even on the hardest days. I feel like, it is kind of become part of my identity, and so hope it keeps on going in a positive direction. But yeah, there's so much of it that brings me happiness.
Yeah, I've interviewed a lot of entrepreneurs over my course of my career, and that's a very common theme. And people say, it's like creating something from that didn't exist before. Just it was an idea, it was a concept, and to see that actually go out and interact with other people's, their lives and have them enjoy it, and it's just really an amazing thing. And so I really do appreciate that insight. What would you think is the most important thing that you've learned, and all the lessons that you might have learned by starting and running a company? What do you think is sort of one of the ones that sticks out as far as an important lesson?
Oh gosh, just life in general. I would say what you're capable of when you run into obstacles, I would say. I think that this business, this company, had the power to sort of I went through a really difficult personal time, like I said, about 6 years ago. And building this company has been a way to kind of build myself back up again. And even though there were a lot of obstacles along the way, if you stay true to yourself and you believe in yourself, like it's really, I think personally, I felt really good about being able to continue on and figure out a way when there didn't seem to be a way. And so I think that's such an important aspect of running your own business, of kind of testing yourself and coming out on the other side and doing things that kind of terrify you. and making it to the other side of it. I would say that those are really it's kind of learning who you are. And I think that has been something I've just learned a lot about myself in the process. So
yeah, that's fantastic. What's one piece of advice that you would give entrepreneurs looking to start a business?
Oh, I would say taking the time you need. I mean, I think sometimes you expect things to happen a lot quicker than they do. I think that I think what built the business now, I can't even relate to it, what it was 7 or 8 years ago. I mean, completely different, but building it over time and not jumping into things too quickly. I think that there's a pressure of having the best stuff for the this or the that right away. And you want instant gratification but I think as hard as it was to be patient, I think that that's also what I feel good about my financial position and the risks I took, because I took it slow and it was over time and making the right, just one step at a time sort of thing. But that's me personally. I was kind of forced to do that. I didn't have the resources to buy that $35,000 pasteurizer, day one. That happened just last year. I was working out of an old steam kettle, and so I just think that if I was to give advice, is to take your time, build that business plan, think about the long term. Because before I started this back up again, I didn't take any time to do those things. And it was a limiting factor. So as soon as I was like, all right, I need to really invest in the not so fun stuff, but the projections and the spreadsheets and that was so critical to get to that next level for me. So take your time and do it right, and put the time in the beginning, and it'll pay off in the long run, I would say.
Yeah, I think that's fantastic advice, because I think what we end up finding is a lot of people are looking for a magic shortcut.
Yeah.
What tends to happen is that, I think the old saying here in Maine is that you can get over your skis or ahead of your skis and pretty quickly.
Right.
And I think being frugal really and understanding how to build a business based on resourcefulness, there's no substitute for that. So I think that's fantastic advice. So let me ask you, Amy, right now, where would be the best place for people to find you out there? Your website, obviously physically you gave us the location, but where would they find out more information on the business?
So I put a lot of time and energy into my website. It's crookedfacecreamery.com, and there's a video, I have an online store with most of the products I'm carrying in the shop, what's available. And so you can find me online, but come to 42 Court Street in Skowhegan. And, when things change, I'd like to open this up to maybe tours and showing people kind of the way it works here. As of right now, that's not really a possibility, but you can at least pop in the shop. And I have more products, like I said, I'm dabbling here and there. I just made a batch of dill havarti that I'm really excited about that I haven't made before. So like little things like that where I want to stock the shop with every week. And I'm also starting to bring in cheeses from other cheesemakers, like blue cheese from Winter Hill Farm and a bloomy rind from Springdale, and just like different cheeses that I know that I'm not going to branch off into right now, but I want to create more a diverse selection. And so, and also be able to talk about this cheesemaker does this, and this is why it's so special. And I feel a lot of camaraderie with the Maine Cheese Guild and the Maine cheesemakers, and we're all facing the same kind of challenges right now. So that's been really fun. So come to the shop and talk and see what we have, but online is a great resource too. And I do have a video on there about kind of this, how I got started and what's important to me and all of that. So
that's great. And I know myself, and I'm sure others are really looking forward to that next step that you're going to. And I just want to thank you for your time, Amy, and just really recognize what an incredible job you have done with that company. As I mentioned to you, I have recommended your company and product several times over, dozens of times, really, to friends, and people just are really amazed at the world-class quality of the product, and they just can't get enough of it. So we're really excited about going into another line of cheese. I'm looking forward to that as well, and really wish you the best of luck. And thank you so much for joining us here at Converge and Create. So thank you for your time today.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
You bet. Thank you.
Take care and stay well.
Will do. Thank you. And again, that's Amy Rowbottom from Crooked Face Creamery. Thank you.